Welcome to a new episode of my YouTube tutorial on how to create a classic Metroidvania game in Unity. In the last episode we created a health system for the enemy so he can receive damage. Since we want that our player can receive damage as well, we have to develop a health system for our player today. So let's get started with the episode of today. For the start, we go to the sprites folder and create a new subfolder. We call that subfolder UI_elements. For our health UI, I created some special sprites. You can download these sprites from itch.io. The link will be in the video description. Drag and drop this one. Then we go into the inspector. We change the sprite mode from single to multiple. Then we change the filter mode from bilinear to point no filter. We apply those changes. We go into the sprite editor. Here you can see the sprite. So the sprite, the UI elements show 5 hearts. Red if they are full, brown if they are empty. So let us slice using the automatic slicer and we apply those changes and then we go back. So we have to add UI image to our canvas. So please pay attention to which canvas. We have a canvas for the map panel. As well, we have a canvas showing our coin text indicating how much coins we collected within the game. We have to attach our health UI to the second canvas, which is our in-game canvas. So to this canvas, we add under UI, we add an image. We call that image health UI element. And here to the image we can collect one of our health pictures. And you can see we have the picture but not in the right size. So we hit the button set native size. Okay, we added the picture now. We set it to native size. The size is kind of small. We can scale it, for example, up to 3 or maybe 2.5. And when you hit this icon and you hit the control key and alt, then you can adjust the position to the right top. Okay, because of the scale it doesn't work. You can also adjust the size using width and height. Just multiply it with 2.5. And then go to the icon again, press the control key and alt and adjust the position to the top left corner. So now regarding that new UI element, indicating the health system, we have to create a new script. So let's go into our scripts folder, create a new subfolder called UI_elements. And within this new subfolder we create the script health bar. And the first thing is that we add using Unity engine.ui. This is very important since in this script we want to access Unity packages for dealing UI elements. Within our health bar script we need following objects. The first one is the game object that we want to access to further access the player script. Within the player script we want later to access the public variable lives for showcasing the correct amount of lives within our UI element. Then we have to access the image that we just recently added to our canvas. And then we have to add 6 different kinds of sprite set, all indicating a different amount of lives. In the start function, we just first access the game object of our player by GameObject.findPlayer. So it will find the game object that is called player. Then if we found the game object player, we can access the component player, the player script. We have to change the name here. Player movement is wrong. We have to change it in player script. And when we access the player script, we can later access the variable lives. And then we have to get the image from the game object that we attached this script to. So we have the image and we can change later the sprites within this image, indicating a different amount of lives for each one. And in the update function, it's quite simple. We write 6 different kinds of if statements. We ask for the actual lives that is defined within our player script, and for each script, for each different amount of lives, we set the sprite of the image to the correct correlating image, showcasing a different amount of lives. I have one simple trick. We don't have to use these sprites as a public variable. It's enough to use serialize field. So this variable will be showcased in the inspector, but it's not a public variable. Let's go to our second step within the player script, because our health bar script will not work if we don't initialize the actual lives variable within our player script. So I will paste in some variables. We start with the header health to organize our inspector of our player. Then we initialize the amount of lives that we want to use. We will fix that to 5. Then go to the actual lives. For the start, we can set them to 1. We will use the variable hurted that will check if we collide with any enemy attack object, and then we will trigger the hurt function within our script that we will later write. We will use the float hurted delay to have a delay to though enemies can't spam attacks. We will use the we will initialize the variable target time hurt start. We will use a public boolean variable dead. This will be a quite important variable, of course. Then we will use the float hurt thrust. So when the player gets hurted, he will be thrusted away from the attack. It's the same as in the enemy script, and we will add the variable float short-term thrust. So that should be the most variables we need today. And now let's go even further. The third step is to add a function called onTriggerEnter2D. It's working similar to onTriggerStay, but it will be called if we enter 2D collider that has enabled the variable trigger, and this will be the case for any game object that uses the tag enemy attack and has a 2D collider that we will use as trigger. If this is the case, we will set our variable to hurted. Also, another if question for if we collide with a 2D object that uses the tag instant death, we will set all our lives to 0, and we will set the death variable to true, and we will set the sprite renderer color to white, and we will trigger the death animation. Instant death will be, for example, called if we fall from platforms with no floor, or if we fall in lava or water. First things first, let's add here a function, the hurt function, in the case that the map isn't active, and let's code also a new hurt function. So now I will paste the hurt function. In the hurt function, we start the if question if hurted is true. You know, hurted is always only then true if we call it in the onTrigger enter 2D function. If this is the case, so we enter a collider that uses the trigger for enemy attacks, the hurted function, hurted variable will be true. We ask if hurted start is false. If hurted starts is false, we set hurted start is true. So all this within this if statement is only called one time per enemy attack. Then we will decrease the actual lives. Also, we ask for if actual lives are 0, so we can set the dead variable to true. We set our sprite renderer color to white, and we set the trigger death trigger in the player animator. Also, we ask if the player is facing right or not, and adjust the short-term thrust here. Also, if the player is hurted and still not dead, we set the sprite renderer color to red. We set a target time and decrease this target time. If this target time gets higher than our hurted delay, we set our hurted variable to false again, so we can be attacked again. If hurted is set to false again, we set the target time again to 0. We set the sprite renderer color to white, and we set the hurt start variable to false, so we can start over again here for the next enemy attack. So, we start now with the health UI element. You can see now that our health bar script is showing in the inspector the sprites. For that sprites we go to our sprites, our UI elements, and you have here the sprites that we can use on the health UI element. So in the case of 0 lives, we will just add this sprite, and you continue. Now we go to our player, and we go to the player script. And now you can see here the header lives, header health. We set our lives to 5 since we have 5 slots in our UI element. I just noticed we forgot one thing. But first let's set hurted delay. We can set it maybe to 2. You can play with this later on, and I set the hurt thrust to maybe 1.5. It's minimum 10. Maybe we set it to 15. Okay. But I forgot one thing in the player script, because in the start function we have to set her actual lives to the amount of lives always. So now we should be almost ready. I hope I didn't do any mistake. We will see that later, because we will test now the health system of our player. The problem is our enemy cannot attack at the moment, so this is a problem. We cannot test it. I want to do the enemy attack in the next episode, so let's just use a trick. We create a 2D object. Let's use a square. Let's drag it here. We can increase its size. And then we add a component collider. We can use a box collider 2D. Then for that collider, we activate the variable is trigger, and then we create a new tag, and this tag should be, of course, called enemy attack. And so let's add a tag, and we call it enemy attack. Now let's go to our square and we attach the tag enemy attack. Also, we create another 2D object. We can call it another square. We drop it below the floor here and we increase its size. So the floor here is covered. We can set its color to black. We will call this game object instant death zone. Let's check the tag that we have to use. We will add a box collider 2D. We will enable the variable is trigger, and then we will create a new tag, and we will call this tag instant death. We go back to our instant death zone, and we will add the tag instant death. So we can check now the health system. Let's first test the attack. Okay, you can see that we get hurted, but and our player character gets a red tint. Also, the number of hurts here in our UI element is decreasing. What is missing yet is the thrust that we want to add to the player when he is attacked. We will add this in the script in the next step. Let me first check the instant death zone. So you can see the number of hurts go to 0. This is a moment where a death screen or game over screen should be showcased, but we will do this in another episode, not today. Let's go back into our player script. And now we have to add the attack thrust. So we go to the fixed update, and in this fixed update we will add an if statement asking for if short-term thrust isn't 0, and if short-term thrust isn't 0, we will further decrease short-term thrust in each update. This is important. So when we get hurted, we don't fly away by the thrust we add in each update. And now let's go to our class for move, where we manage how we move. And you can see here we set the velocity to move input times for x times speed, and we add here just our short-term thrust, and most of the time the short-term thrust will be 0, so this doesn't have any impact. But when we get attacked and the hurted variable is for one time called set to true, the short-term thrust will be increased and then further decrease for each update. So we add for a moment short-term thrust to our player so that the attack has some of impact on the player. We will save this and let's see in the game. So we in the game, and let's walk to our enemy attack box, and let's walk into the box, and you can see we have some impact. it's maybe a little bit not enough. So I will go to the inspector of our player, and let's go to the health variables. At first, I think our hurted delay variable is too high. So when we get hurted, the player stays red for a long time. I think that doesn't feel correct, so I decrease this value to 1. Second step, our hurt thrust. I don't think the impact of the hurt thrust is enough, so I will increase this variable. With that said, let's test how the attack feels now when we playing the game. So let's walk to our attack box and walk right into the attack box. And I think it feels much better. It feels much better now. Of course, feel free to change this as you want. And you can see we don't have any hearts anymore, and we need a death scream in one of the following episodes. But I think this is enough for today. Thank you very much for listening to my tutorial on how to create a classic Metroidvania game in Unity. I hope you enjoy this tutorial. If this is the case, I would be very thankful if you can give this video a like and maybe leave a subscription to my channel, so you don't miss any updates on this tutorial series in the future. Thank you for watching, and see you soon again.